I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101, the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today, I have my special guest, author of his TV novels, no other than Mr. Kalimaxos.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Mr. Kali, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Before we go on and discuss again another book because another week of all the books that we talk about.
Okay, we started out with the book My Decision about a woman who has a husband that shows no interest in her sexually, and she has to decide what she's going to do. That was the first week. Then we did the story of Jane in the Diaries of Jane, Jane's Diaries. And it's an 8-part story of uh, a man who, after his wife passes away, finds her diaries in the attic, and they describe a secret life that she had while they were married that he never knew. And the life was full of juicy bits of her lovers and also her private thoughts about her marriage, her kids, her husband. So that's Jane's story. Okay. And then last week we did the 6-part series called My Husband's Boss, where a couple during the 2008-2009 recession um, make a deal with the husband's boss that they will offer the wife to be his mistress as collateral for the boss giving the husband a promotion and a good job that will allow them to get by during the hard times. And that's pretty much a recap of these stories. Uh, Very short recap.
First book that we talk about is a standalone novel, and the second book that we talk about is a series as well as last week, right, Mr. Kelly?
Right, yeah. My Decision is a standalone book, standalone story. Um, and the other two, Jane's Diaries and My Husband's Boss, are both series. Um,
Yes. Hey, so Mr. Kelly, what are we gonna talk about today?
well, today we're talking about another one of my standalone books, which is kind of one of my favorite because it touches on a lot of issues in life, sexuality in general, um, and also it's it's told from the point of view of a married woman, young married woman, college educated, good background, and all this, and she has some issues that are related to size and sizes, not just one thing. So the name of the book is called Size Matters. Now, some people associate that title
Yes.
with male size only. But
Yes.
that is not so much the case, although it's part of it in a roundabout way. The problem with this story is that Allison, the main character, is a very tall girl. The story is about a girl who's tall and uh, her thinking. Um, uh, Maybe I should give you some background as to how I came about doing the story real quick. When I was
Definitely.
a teenager, I worked at this place, and there was another girl that worked there, amongst many, and she and her, she and I became good friends. The thing about it is that she was a little taller than me, and uh, real pretty. And to tell you the truth, I thought I didn't have a chance with her, so I didn't. I never did anything other than befriend her and all that. And eventually, I found out that from her sister, the girl quit, and her sister came to take her place. Her younger sister. By then, I was already in college, and her sister told me, she always liked you, but you never gave her the time of day because she's tall. And she also um, realized that no small guy wants to date a taller girl, and it's rough for us taller girls, because she was tall also, because the only guys that we can date is tall guys, because every girl wants to be hooked up with and marry a guy that's taller than her. That leaves only the tall guys, but tall guys like small girls, so we're left out in the lurch. And here she was, she really liked you, but you never even considered her, which is true. I never did, much to my I it was kind of wrong. I mean, she was a nice girl. I mean, I had nothing bad against her, real pretty too, but in my mind was like, tall girl, she don't want to go out with a guy that's shorter than her. It was only 1 inch, but every time she would put on heels, she'd tower over me. So I just said, would I have? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't even know that she liked me. She was real good at keeping her emotions. Anyway, long story short, but
Yes.
that girl is the impetus, the driving force of this story. Because um, I've run into a couple of taller women in my life, and they all said the same thing, that they had problems finding men, and all that, because of how society views tall women, and how um, women that are shorter, they want to date these big guys. As one short woman told me where I worked, yeah, my husband is big because I don't want to have short kids. I wanted to have tall kids. So I didn't even give short guys a chance. So it's one of those weird things about our culture, no matter where, or throughout humanity. I think no matter what country you go to, you run into this problem. People have these preconceived notions about who should date whom and what, and those are the issues that we have. So here we come to this book, and Allison is this. It starts out, she was a teenage girl. Um, she never stopped growing, or other girls stopped. She kept growing until she was real tall. And she was a basketball player and a volleyball player in high school, real pretty. And she was asked to be a model. So a runway model, those girls are usually tall. And she and her mom would go to New York or places where she would do runway modeling and all this. And while it was fun, it also swelled her head, made her thinking that she was, kind of entitled. I mean, she was pretty, she was a model, she was a young girl, and all that. And because of that, hardly anybody asked her out when she was in high school. And then she said, um, she, while exposed to modeling, she learned that models, they only have a short life, most of them. Very few of them model into their 30s. So she said, why should I do this? I'm smart enough to go to college. She said, I'm smart enough to go to college. So she took one of her scholarships in volleyball and went to college. And while she's in college, again, she's a tall girl, and very few guys are going out with her. So she finally um, meets this one guy. He's 6'3". He's real tall, and he takes a liking to her. She takes a liking to him, and all that. And her roommate coaches her. Mind you, the girl is, by the way, she's a virgin. She's never had sex before, and the guy that she's meets is this hotshot guy who is known to be a womanizer. Um, but she thinks that maybe she's got a shot because there's a good-looking tall guy who actually likes her. So, but she's not experienced, so her roommate basically puts her in a crash course and teaches her about all kinds of things to do about sex, including telling her, listen here, if you want to land a man, you got to give him everything early, right away, so that he keeps coming back for more.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so the poor girl is like, so her friend actually teaches her with toys as to what to do and all that. And she actually goes out with this guy, and she does real good orally, and the guy's interested, and then they go to his room, and this is the moment of truth. She's never had sex. This is the first time she's going to have sex. And
Yes.
the guy is again, the size comes in. This is why he was so popular with the girls. He's real big. He's well endowed. Well,
Yes.
he takes her virginity, and while he's in there, um, he reaches the bottom, so to speak, the back end, real quickly. Like she's not very deep down there,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
deep enough to take most of him. She like takes part of him, like maybe about 2/3, if that, and that's it. And he's used to, girls that can, and he's like a little weirded out about it, but she does her best. But it kind of starts to hurt after a while when he keeps trying to push too deep. Anyway, so eventually she decides, because like her girlfriend told her, first time you better give him everything so that he'll come back.
Yes.
So she says, um, why don't we, do you have any lubricant? Why don't we try the back door, so to speak? And he's like, oh my God, I've hit the lottery with this girl. She does everything.
Oh, wow.
So they do that. And of course, because biology, there's more room back there, he manages to get all the way in, and he enjoys himself. And he's like, oh, this is great. The only thing is that she can't bring herself to tell him about how it hurts when they do it on the front. But she puts up with it until 2 months later, he proposed to her. And they're seniors in college now. They're going to graduate soon, and he proposes, and they're going to get married as soon as they're done with college. And they're making
Oh,
arrangements where what jobs they're going to take, where they're going to go live, and all that, and have a life. But she hasn't told them about the problem, and it's kind of uncomfortable for her whenever they do it that way. But she puts up with it because she figures that where am I going to get another guy like this? He's tall, good looking. He's nice to me. I'll just deal with it, and I'll just do everything else to make up for, and all that. Well, fast forward, they do this, they get married, they have a honeymoon, they come back, and while they're in the real world, and the romance is over after the I do part in the honeymoon, and now they're home, and there's like bills on life and everything else. And in their sex life, he kind of tries to be a little bit more forceful when he has her up front, and he ends up hurting her. And he got pissed off when she told him to stop. And the next day, because she was hurting real bad, she goes to her gynecologist. And the gynecologist says, listen, you got some heavy duty bruising in there. And she asked about the husband, how big he was, and all this. And she said, and you're also very shallow. You're not very deep for a big girl like you. She said, oh, no, she says to her, but I'm a tall girl. Why don't I? What? There's smaller girls I hear that can deal with it. And she said, look, the doctor says, look, it's how we're built. Our bodies are all different. Some men are longer, some men are shorter. Some women are deeper, some are not. Some women have big boobs, some women have small. Tall, short, fat, slim, you name it. We're all different, and that's the reality. And your reality is that your husband needs to be gentle with you, or else you're going to have internal damage. Anyway, so she gets him on the phone, the doctor does, and tries to explain to him. The guy gets a little irritated, and but they kind of sort it out. And when they get home, he says to her, how come it took this long for you to tell me? And in the end, she has to come clean and tell him what happened, that she never told him about her situation. She never told him that she was a virgin the first night that they met. Um, she went out of her way to distract him so that he didn't notice. Um, she was very duplicitous, because what she thought, mind you, she's a bit entitled in her thinking. I deserve the tall guy. I have to, in her mind, it's like, I'll do what I got to do to get that guy. So she wasn't honest with him from the beginning, because she was afraid that she was going to lose him. But eventually, like all these things, where we try and deceive and lie to people, you can only get away with that with strangers or people that you don't meet all the time. But people you live with, sooner or later, they figure stuff out and things come out. And that's what happens with her. And after that, their marriage is not too good, because he doesn't trust her, and their sex is not as good as it used to be. And eventually, they spent less time with each other. She ends up getting a job where she travels and all that. And she gets back from a trip and finds him in bed with one of the neighbors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's where um, she she realizes that she has a nervous breakdown, and she's driving and passes a bridge and gets out of the car, and she's thinking about jumping. And a woman cop um, tricks her into distracts her and grabs her and pulls her back and handcuffs her. They take her to the hospital, psychiatric hospital, where they keep her for a week until they figured out what happened and all that. But the long and the short of it is that her marriage is over, because the husband never showed up to even ask how she was. And so she takes time off from work, and she calls in and tells him that she can't come in for a while. She needs to get herself together and all that. And her dad hires an investigator to find out about her husband and what he's been doing. And the guy, basically, the investigator, tells her, your husband has been cheating on you now for the last year. Every time you were
Well,
away, yeah, every time you were away, he was cheating. And he basically documented, he said, well, the three people that I know for sure, that could be more, is your neighbor that you caught him with, a woman at his job and another woman who's a manager of a bar in town somewhere. And she says, I don't even know who this woman is. She says, I know the woman at his job. But anyway, bottom line is she divorces him, and that's it with him. They sell the house, and he goes his own way, and she goes about her business. And um, that's pretty much the the first third of the story, so to speak. And it's all about this story has a lot to do an explanation of the size problems in life, about how and a thing called physical incompatibility. You can fall in love with anybody, but physically speaking, there may be issues that prevent the couple from having a decent sex life. Um, and while some people say, that's why you should road test somebody before you marry them, you know, in this case, he did road test her, but she was lying to him. So,
Yes.
and so that, I wanted to touch on certain points of these issues. Um, how some women, when they heard like his coworker, she's married with three kids, but when she heard or she realized that uh, the main character's woman, what husband is well endowed, she put her marriage on the line to have an affair with him. The neighbor, the same thing, and most likely the woman at the bar did the same thing also. Um, so there's that aspect of it, how some women are, um, and here this is an interesting thing because um, I've had some women have conversations with me, and I've also seen some polls where they ask women about what size man they prefer. And what's interesting is that women say in these polls, I'd like to try the guy who's real big, but I don't want him to be my regular partner. They don't want somebody too small, but they don't want somebody too big because then they're not enjoying it. And I remember a woman that I used to work with who basically told us that the reason why her and her husband got divorced, other than his cheating, was that he was too big and he would hurt her. And, and one of the women said, Okay, now I've been with a guy who was big. He didn't hurt me. And she said, Well, when my husband was civil to me, he didn't hurt me. He would stop at a certain point, and it was fun. And that's what happened before we got married and early on in our marriage. But every time he got angry at me, he would take it out on me sexually. And the next day, I had a hard time walking. And it was painful during, and I wasn't enjoying it. And in the end, she said, I had enough. Now, the first time I heard that, I was like, okay, this has to be an aberration. How many guys like that are there? But then there was a guy that I knew who confided in me that he was big, but that women would try him out, but they didn't want to, like he asked a couple of them to marry them, and they were like,
Yes.
no, I don't think so. No, I'm sorry. I can't handle that. And I said to him, "Is this for real, or are you just making it up?" And he said, "It's depressing." He says basically, I'm going to be a single guy, and he says I know that I can attract women, but they don't stick around long. So that is one aspect of the size, equation. And of course, we talked about the height issue. People who want somebody of a specific height. Now, you got some people who really like small women, whether they're tall or whether they're whatever they are. Um, and then you have some guys who are attracted to women that are taller. Unfortunately, for tall women, though, there's not that many men who, according to statistics, that want to get married to a a taller woman. I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Mel Brooks, the guy who did Blazing Saddles, the
Oh
movie.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. He was only 5'5", and he was married to the actress Anne Bancroft, who was 5'8".
Oh wow.
And yeah, and they were inseparable. I mean, um, they until she passed away about now what 12, 15 years ago. Um, they were together constantly. I mean, there was never, um, there anyone who knew them said that, she thought the world of him, he thought the world of her. So there are some guys who are that way. I mean, that um, doctor who was the viral doctor for during the lockdown 2 years ago, Dr. Fauci. He's a short man with a tall wife. So it's not like there's no man that will go with a taller woman or tall women that will go with a shorter man. There are. It's just that is for most of them there's a problem, and girls have been raised to think that they should date somebody who's bigger than them. I mean, my wife tells me I'm glad that I found somebody who's bigger than me. She's not big herself though. My wife is short, you know,
Sure, yes.
uh, but she told me under no circumstances would she have dated somebody shorter than her.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah. So listen, I got to tell you something. Like I told you last week, I try not to pass judgment on these people. We all have our kinks, our preferences, and all that. I mean, the actor Mr. De Niro, he only likes black women. All his
Really?
wives and girlfriends have been black, and he
Oh,
yeah, he won't give white women the time of day. I mean, they're his buds, but not to get married to or to date or anything else. The actor John Wayne had a thing for Hispanic brunettes. Um,
okay.
yeah, the actress what was her name? It was this famous German actress who worked in Hollywood. Anyway, a blonde, and she said that her and him dated briefly, and they were somewhere at dinner. And of course, with actors, they put them right in the middle so that everybody would see them at the restaurant and all this. And she said, this beautiful brunette woman walked in the room and she said, John just kept staring at her. And I sat there wondering what the hell happened to our date because that's how he was. And if you look
Okay.
at all the wives that John Wayne had, except from the last one, they were all Hispanic brunettes from his first one to the second and third, I think, or something to that effect. But anyway, long story short, we all have our preferences for things that we like. And in this case, in this story, that is one of the issues that I talk about. I talk about the sexual incompatibility of people, too big, too small, too this, too that. Um, Now, another aspect of this book is the infidelity. And I figured that I couldn't get a book big enough by just discussing size. So I thought I would toss in some infidelity because that's another topic that is prevalent in our society. And uh, unlike my character Jane in the Jane's Diaries books, who decided that she was going to be a cheater and she never got caught, like most of them, believe it or not, statistically speaking, 85% of people who cheat never get caught. And of those that do get caught or exposed, let me correct that, of those that are exposed, only 7% to 8 are caught. The other 7 to 8% expose themselves, like during a divorce or after or whatever, or even during a marriage out of spite. They'll tell the husband, oh, by the way, yeah, I screwed your friend, or, you know, some to that effect. But so basically most of them don't get caught in the stories. They do, because we're not going to have a story. I mean, I spun a story out of a woman that never got caught, but you know how many Jane Diary stories can you write? So you need, in the genre, of cheating, somebody has to get caught so that you can have a little bit of drama. And that's basically what happens in the story when Allison gets home and finds that her hubby is doing the neighbor who she thought was her friend.
Yes.
They used to talk a lot and all that. And she becomes, and here's an aspect of the cheating culture. Um, you have two kinds of people in the cheating culture: those who cheat and those that are cheated upon, the cheaters and the cheated. Okay. And the cheaters do what they do, and they basically make a personal decision that they're going to cheat. I mean, and you can, we talked about that with Jane as to why she did it. She was like entitled, and she thought that, she quote unquote deserved to have her fun. And so long as she was a good wife and mother, um, and a good worker and help pay the bills and this and that and everything, that what she did a little bit on the side was her business. That's Jane's way. What happens to Allison in Size Matters is that she's on the other end. She is the cheated wife, the wronged wife, and she's bitter. She's bitter towards obviously her husband, um, and she's also bitter towards the woman from her husband's job who knew her, knew that her husband was married, and did him anyway, and put her marriage on the line. And she develops a mindset that'll, some, not everybody, some of the people that have been cheated on, the need for revenge towards somebody. They become spiteful, and they feel like they have to do something about it. And um, she finds she doesn't attack her or do anything like that, but she figures out a way to get even. And I don't want to spoil it because it's part of the story, but she finds a way to get even with this woman for doing what she did. Um, and I put that in there, and I didn't make it into a moralistic thing. I mean, she herself, the character, Allison, is being moralistic. I mean, when she reams the other woman, she's basically, giving her a piece of her mind, and boy, you broke your vows, and how could you do it? And you're blah blah blah. It's a very moral indignation that drives the conversation between them, and that is part of these people, the people that have been cheated upon, be they men or women, and they bring that um, bitterness with him for the rest of their life in one way or another. Now, not all of them. Some of them, and I'll tell you, I am one of them because my previous significant other, when I was younger, thank God we didn't have kids, um, she was big on running around and doing whoever she wanted. In the end, when we broke up, she basically told me, listen, you're a nice guy and all that, and nothing against you, but I want to be single. And
Wow.
yeah, and I'll tell you this, the way I saw it, she did me a favor because we were young, we didn't have children, and I could move on and have a life and say, okay, not you, then somebody else. And thank you very much, and moved on. Did I like it? No, because I did have feelings for her and everything, and it did hurt when I found out. But the way that I saw it was, uh, you can't force people to be something that they're not, and to be with someone they don't want to be with. So I accepted it, and I moved on. And I got to tell you something. She's not the only one. I mean, I had another girlfriend who I found out that while she was dating me, she was dating somebody else, and she was telling me that she was in love and wanted us to, do more and all that. Meanwhile, she's hedging her bets with somebody else. But it didn't bother me that much because I didn't. My feelings towards her were not reciprocated. So when I found out, I was like, okay, thanks, and I moved on again. But so these things happen, and there's people in life who have that happen to them, and they say the person at fault here is the person who did this. You hear the comment of, um, some women say to men, "You men are all alike," or guys who have had a problem with a woman say, "Women are all this or that." And I remember being young in my early 20s when this thing happened with my ex, and I said, "She's just one of millions." I mean, doesn't mean that everybody's like her, because I knew of people within my family and friends and other, and they weren't like her. So I said to myself, I got to move on. That's how it is. Now, healthy people do that. Unfortunately, some people don't. They become spiteful and hateful and resentful, and they take it with them like you won't believe. Um, as a matter of fact, there is a website online called literotica.com where people post erotic works. Most of it is decent. The people there, and what I mean by decent is that the people who go there and read and comment are like, just people who read that stuff and have interest, and their comment will be about, the story, or whether they liked it, or whether it was good or not, whether the writing was good, blah, 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 whatever. But there is one page called Loving Wives, and it is, unfortunately, it is full of people who are women haters. A lot of them are guys who went through a divorce, usually a nasty divorce, lost their kids, lost everything. I mean, in my case, I didn't lose anything. I mean, other than, we decided who's going to get the toaster and who's going to get the car, you know what I'm saying? It was like minor. But when there's children involved in a house and a life and all that, and you go through divorce, and you have guys who have to pay child support for like 10, 15 years, and also pay for the mortgage of the house, because she gets to keep the house because the kids are living in the house. And the court awards custody to mothers, like in my county where I live, 13 times to one in favor of women over men. So most of these men, they go through a divorce and it's ugly. They get raped and they develop anger and resentment like you don't know. And they are likely to be in that page. Some of the stuff that these people write will make you cringe. I mean, I have Allison be a little resentful and trying to be creative in getting even with the woman who wronged her. But compare to what those people write there, uh, it's minor. And compared to some of the women I knew when I was working who have been divorced, and their anger towards men, uh, my character, Allison, is mild compared to them. But I thought I included in the story simply to show the you know the difference between to show the some of the feelings that these people have, the resentment, um, and how far they go. Um, I've had conversations and arguments with some of these people, basically telling them, "How long has it been since you were divorced?" And I go, 15 years. I'm like, 15 years, and you still feel this way? Aren't you married again? Yeah. I, I would hate to be the wife of these guys or the husband of these women who went through a bad divorce and are still carrying the the angst, the anger, the resentment, the anger, the need to get even and all that. It darkens your soul. Imagine living with a person like that. I mean, imagine you're this woman, you meet this guy and the two of you fall in love and you get married and all that, and you hear that he's divorced, and you're like, okay, well, that happens a lot nowadays. But he seems like a nice guy. I'm gonna make a life with him. And as time passes, it comes out that he's still hung up on his ex-wife and what she did, and he can't stand her, and it comes up in conversations, and there's anger and resentment, and what did the bitch do, and I'm still paying child support, and and the things that come out of these people's mouths are not nice. I mean, they're not happy people. They're, like I said, there's a darkness in their soul. um, and while I included it in my story a little bit, uh, Allison in the end ends up learning how to cope with it. But I never made her fully cured from it. There's a point where she and a new guy that she knows, they go to counseling before they get married because she still has those issues. And the woman counselor basically is telling her, look, you got to let it go because not everybody is like that. It's that person that you had, that kind of a thinking. So it's represented in the story. So the story is basically in kind of like two parts. One has to do with the size issues and size matters, and the other one has to do with the infidelity and the psychological damage to people who have been through it. And in this case, it's a woman. And to her credit, she's not one of those that is like totally lost to and hateful. Um, I got to tell you, I've ran into a couple of these women. Basically, um, they never wanted to get married ever again or trust another man ever again. And here's the sad thing: some of these women based all their beliefs as to what men were and why they shouldn't have another one on just one guy, because they have been raised with the myth that you meet somebody, you fall in love, and that's it for the rest of your life, and that's how it is. And they don't just fall in love with one guy and stay with him all their life. In this case, they fall in love, they have a bad marriage, they have a divorce, and they end up hating him for the rest of their life to the point that they never give another guy another chance. They never give themselves another chance to have a life. At least Allison in this story goes past that point, and she does decide to date again and make a life for herself afterwards, um, and deal with her size issues and her mentality and the entitlement that she had for being pretty and and a model and all that. And she has to grow up, and she took the hard road to get there. It goes to show you that even these women who are, the top of the food chain of women, the beautiful models and all this, they go through problems. And I wrote this story before. I don't know if you're familiar with the lady model Michelle Bunchen. She was married to a
Mm,
football player, Brady.
yes, yes.
Yeah, he is the one who has won multiple Super Bowls and more than any other quarterback, I believe, in history. Well, she gave up about 15 years ago. She gave up her modeling career so that they can get married and have children. And I believe they have 3 kids. And the deal was that because he's a quarterback and a football player, and let's face it, those guys, most of them, by the time they're 30 to 32, 33, they're done. Either they're just not fast enough or strong enough anymore because the sport demands so much of them that they can't physically meet the demands of the sport, or they get injured. I mean, injuries in football are the main reason why these guys can continue. Well, this guy was lucky enough that he was in his early 40s still playing football. But they had made a deal, the two of them, that once the kids reached a certain age, he was going to quit football. I mean, he had more championship rings than anybody else. I mean, one more did he want, and she was going to go back to work. Well, he reneged on the deal, and
Yeah.
yeah, and not only that, he started seeing an old girlfriend. So here she is, top of the food chain woman. I mean, she's still beautiful. I mean, I just saw pictures of her yesterday about a photo shoot she was doing, and I was like, no way, this woman is 41 years old. She's got like the looks, the body, the everything. Well, the mentality of these people, especially beautiful women, it goes to their head. There's a certain ego boost and a um, and it's entitlement, ego. They think that because things come to them easily because of their looks.
So before we go on, Mr. Kelly, I want to the people listening in Germany. Oh, Dankeschön, Germany. In the Hesse, I got 23%. Bavaria, 19%. Rhineland Plus at 16%. North, 15%. Land Berlin at 8%. Lower Saxony at 4%. Baden-Württemberg, 2%, Baden-Württemberg at 2%, Saxony at 2%, Baden-Württemberg, Sachsen 2%, Schleswig-Holstein, Hamburg, Thuringia, Free and City of Hamburg, Saarland, Mecklenburg, Vorpommern, Saxony, Anhalt, and last but not the least, Bremen. Thank you, Sean, Germany, for supporting this podcast because this created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. Kalimaxos. So, Mr. Kali, can you invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Um, my books are a little bit different than other people in the erotica genre. As a matter of fact, they're part erotica, but they also have an, a theme of marriage issues and married life and how the eroticism of married people um, is influenced and how it exists, how the different ways that it manifests itself. So if you're looking for something different, um, spicy and definitely steamy, but you want a story that goes with it and characters that are believable, my books are for you. And I have a selection of 31 at the moment, and I'm writing more. And some are standalone books, like the one we talked about tonight, Size Matters. And then there are others that are in series form, short series, some that are like just 2 books, and then there are some that are as many as 8. So you're invited to read as many as possible because that's what I want you to do.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Kalimaxos because, well, all the novels or its TV novels is adopted mostly from his experiences. Right, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir.
Bodycon people, see you soon.